Welcome to another edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I want to thank you all for tuning in as you do each and every week. Again, this is the Rap Soul Podcast. This is the intersection where we have discussions about music and artists from the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s when it comes to rap, hip hop, soul, and R&B. Simply put, folks, this is the best music podcast that you have never heard of until right now. Again, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Shout out to those of you who are watching on YouTube as well as Spotify. Man, check this out. On this episode, what I'm going to talk about is the 2025 Spotify Wrapped edition for me. As many of you know, if you have a Spotify account, each year Spotify puts out they send you this digital, basically your digital blueprint for what you listen to on Spotify. Now, in the days of controlling and manipulating data, some could say that, they're doing a lot of spying on you as far as what you're doing. But honestly, this is what you've consented to in your agreement to use Spotify. So it's not necessarily that they're spying on you, but they are keeping data. So if you wonder how you end up on some of these lists, as far as when people start calling you or sending you mail about stuff, it's probably because, they're tapped into Spotify in some way, shape, or form down the road. But that's beside the point. So I wanted to talk about my particular Spotify Wrap for 2025. It's I'm always amazed because I know like what I'm listening to, but I'm not sure how much of it I'm consuming. I know that I go through periods where it's all podcasts, and then I go through periods where it's all music, and then I go through periods where I'm just on audiobooks. But for the most part, in 2025, I spent a lot of time listening to music, spent a lot of time listening to podcasts, obviously. And I'll get into, the ones that made the top of my list. So I'm going to tell you how Spotify broke this thing down. The first thing they did was they told me about the top genres that I listen to. And they actually have them in order. And so we'll start with 5 and we'll go down, or go up, I should say. Number 5, my top 5 genre coming in at number 5, funk. I don't know that I listen to a lot of funk, but that's what they said. Number 4, New Jack Swing. Now, New Jack Swing, very much so popularized by the great Teddy Riley in the mid to late 80s into the 90s. Very, very popular. But again, I don't think I listened to a bunch of New Jack Swing, but according to Spotify, I did. Coming in at number 3, Quiet Storm. I guess that would be the slow jams. That's my guess. But I mean, nobody calls it the Quiet Storm anymore. But okay, I'm rolling. Number 2, Neo Soul. I will agree. I probably listen to a lot of Neo Soul. And it'll be evident when you hear some of the artists that made my top 5. And then coming in at number 1, my top genre of music that I listen to on Spotify in 2025, you guessed it, hardcore hip hop. Now I don't make the differentiation between hardcore hip hop and, regular hip hop. It's just hip hop to me, but it is what it is. So yeah, I did that. And that was, interesting. I don't know how they break that down, but that's what they said. A little earlier, I mentioned audiobooks. I did, catch a few audiobooks. According to Spotify, I listened to 8 different audiobooks. Now, I don't set any goals or anything like that when it comes to this type of stuff, but I do have a list of audiobooks to listen to. And I think at last glance, that list was at about 15. So I think I'm going to surpass that this year. I'm not in a huge rush to listen to all of them at once. I usually take them, I'll listen to them particularly if I know I have a long drive coming up or something like that, like if I'm driving back home to South Carolina, um, I like to get the audiobooks in. I like to get them in and listen to them throughout the day. It makes the day go by faster. Plus, I'm also picking up on things when I'm listening. Because I'll be honest, it's easier for me to listen to an audiobook now than it is for me to sit and actually read a book. I do have a book that I purchased, and it's right here. It is the Life of Singleton from Boys in the Hood to Snowfall, by Thomas Golianopoulos. If you follow the 12 Kyle podcast, I interviewed Thomas. That episode is out. If it's not out, it will be out right after you see this episode. So make sure that you check that out. But Thomas sent me a copy of the ebook, and then I actually purchased a copy. But it's a great read. I'm damn near finished with it. Make sure that you check it out. But this is one of the few books that I've actually been able to sit and read. I don't sit and read a lot of books. I just don't. So it's easier for me to get into audiobooks. But yeah, according to Spotify Wrapped, I did listen to I did listen to 8 audiobooks, and the main audiobook that I listened to was the book, if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, the book that you see here in the background, Dilettante by Dan Charnas. It's interesting because I purchased this book a few years ago. And this book is, I want to say, how many pages is this book? This book is, it's like 400 something. Yes, 400 plus pages. And so I knew I wasn't going to be able to read the book. So when I found out that it was available on audiobooks, um, I got it. And the great thing about Spotify is that with my Spotify account, um, I have access to a lot of different audiobooks because I have the Spotify premium. Now, I will say this much. I think what was interesting was I purchased this book, and while the audiobook was available, it wasn't available for free on Spotify. So I actually ended up paying for this book twice because I wanted to have the audiobook. And so I ended up getting it. I ended up purchasing the book, and I ended up getting the audiobook. I think I think the book was $20 and the audiobook was another $20. But shout out to Dan Charnas, great book on the late great James DeWitt Yancey, aka Jay Dilla, aka the King of Beats. That was my number one audiobook that I listened to in 2025. Audiobooks, as I mentioned, like because I'm constantly on the move, uh, it's easier for me to listen to an audiobook than it is for me to actually sit down and, have a book that I'm turning the pages to. I I don't know, for some reason, man, I think that point in time in my life is come and gone because I'm constantly doing something. And if I'm watching, I'm not really watching TV like that, but if I'm watching TV, I'm doing other things, or I'm working with the podcast, or I'm on someone's podcast, or I'm doing some editing for this podcast or the 12 Kyle podcast. So the idea of sitting down and, reading a book, just probably, I'm going to I'm going to finish reading The Life of Singleton. But other than that, because, that book is about John Singleton, somebody who I, definitely was a fan of. But outside of that, me just sitting reading a book's not going to happen. But Spotify does keep track of, the audiobooks that I read. And like I said, I've got at least 15 in the queue. So I definitely will get to those this year, and maybe I'll add a few more along the way. Um, but I like the fact that Spotify keeps up with these things. I'm not bothered by the data or anything like that, but I think, um, Spotify does a good job of packaging it, and I like the way when they roll this stuff out, and it usually gets rolled out in December. Um, I like the way it looks and the way that it's presented. It's presented with music and this streams, and you could share it with your social media people. And it would have been easy for me to just put it in a slide and put it on social media, but I wanted to actually, put some love into it and make it into a podcast, and thus we have this episode. Um, right now it's time for a commercial break, and on the other side of the break, I'm going to tell you about the top podcast that I listen to. You may be surprised at who's at number one. Um, my top podcasts, top albums, top songs, top artists. Sit tight. We'll be back in just a second. Welcome back. As I mentioned before the break, I was going to tell you about the top podcasts that I listen to according to Spotify in my Spotify Wrapped 2025. Um, One of the first things that they mentioned is that I listened to 18,523 minutes of podcasts. That's a lot of podcasts. In fact, that's a pretty damn long time. I don't know how many days that is, but that's a lot of time to be listening to podcasts. But Spotify is the medium in which I listen to podcasts the most. I do listen to a few podcasts on YouTube. The thing that I will say too as well, if when I break down my top 5 podcasts, if you think that you should be in my top 5, I'm probably not listening to it on Spotify. I maybe you're on YouTube and I listen to yours on YouTube or what have you, but that's why. So let's go ahead and get it cracking. And we'll start at 5 and go up. My top 5 podcasts according to Spotify. Coming in at number 5, a very, very dope music podcast that I'm sure that you've all heard. That's right. The Rap Soul podcast comes in at number 5. No surprise there. Like I said, I listen to every episode. I don't know how you could actually be a podcaster and not listen to your own podcast. Like I don't listen to the podcast before they get published, but once they get published, I got to listen to it at least once. Sometimes twice, but mostly at least one time. And I do it on Spotify. Sometimes I'll jump over to Apple, but for the most part, it's on Spotify. Sometimes I'll watch the YouTube, but for the most part, like I said, it's on Spotify. Coming in at number 4, a podcast that drops every Friday without fail. She recently hit episode, what was it? She hit her 2-year anniversary. My home girl, friend of the show, Britt Renee. I can talk about this all day. Again, make sure you check out her podcast every Friday. She has not missed a Friday, I don't think, in 2 years. Britt, as you guys know, if you follow this podcast or if you follow the 12 Kyle podcast, is a frequent contributor. That's the homie right there. Really good friend. And I definitely look forward to having her on here because we've got quite a few more episodes to talk about. We're going to bring back the Versus series that we were doing before. And, we were both of us are huge Prince fans. So it was great to have her on talking about Prince. It was just great having her on to talk about music, amongst other things, as well as her Ratchet playlist, which we talked about on another episode. But shout out to Britt. She came in at number 4. Coming in at number 3, the homie, The Right Time with Bomani Jones. Shout out to Bomani Jones. It's interesting because I think I'm almost certain in my Spotify Wrapped for 2024 and 2023 and maybe 2022, The Right Time with Bomani Jones probably was first, right? And there's a reason why it's not first this year, is because somewhere around probably the midpoint of the year, I started watching more of his episodes on YouTube. And here's the thing, Bomani has a sports show, and so there's audio and then there's video. And normally I will watch the video on YouTube. And so I started doing that a lot more during the summertime, and it just kind of kept going. But I still listen to the audio, particularly if I'm in the car. But Bomani's got a great show. I've been a fan, been down with Bo, man, for a long time. And he drops new episodes I think he's dropping episodes every day but Thursday. So great content. Bo's, like I said, he feels like one of the homies. We just don't know each other yet. Coming in at number 2, mentioned him a little earlier, or at least I think I did. My man King Germ and Queen Germ from Pod and Saved Our Marriage. They drop new episodes every Friday. That's the homie right there. Me and King Germ talk. We chop it up, man. If we don't call each other on the phone or in a group chat, it's every day, literally every day. And that's my brother, man. We bounce ideas off of each other. He's been on here before. I finally got a chance to meet him in 2025 when he came up to Atlanta from Florida for the little brother concert, and man, we had a ball, man. It was a funny night. Shout out to Be Easy. Met Be Easy too for the first time. Chuck the Gambler. My boy Ryan was there. We all hung out at the Little Brother concert. Had a ball, man. But King German's a real person. I'm probably one of the few people online who knows what he looks like. And like I said, we had a good time. And what was interesting was where we were standing, there's a picture that somebody took. And the picture ended up on a website. But like I knew who let me take this back. I knew that the picture was taken. And when I sent the picture to Germ, I told him, I said, hey, send this to Queen Germ if she ever questions whether or not you went to the concert. You can show it to us. So that was a funny thing. But yeah, we had a good time, man. So shout out to Germ, Queen Germ, for coming in at number 2. Number 1, most listened to podcast by yours truly on my Spotify 2025 Wrapped edition is the podcast that got it all started, the 12 Kyle podcast. Duh. I listened to every episode on Spotify. I don't think I listened to any episodes last year on any other platform other than Spotify. So yeah, the 12 Kyle podcast, the 12 KP coming in at number 1 with a bullet, if you will. So yeah, I had, according to Spotify, I listened to the 12 Kyle podcast for 3,872 minutes. That's a long time to be listening to your own self talk. Now we're going to flip it over to music. Music is a big part. I told you podcasting and music is what I tap into Spotify for. According to the statistics, I listened to 34,412 minutes of music. That is 23 days, and it was all consumed on Spotify. That's not a plug for Spotify, but I'm just letting you know I spent a lot of time listening to music on this particular app. And there were 1,612 different songs that I consumed. Now, I think that number's low. I think I consume more songs than that, but there's quite a few playlists that I have that I go back to, that I listen to a lot. Some of the albums, a lot of the albums that I listen to are repeats. Every now and then I'll get some new music and I'll rock it. This year in particular, there was a particular album that came out that I played and I played and I played and I played, and it's I wore it out. I wore it out. And then there's an album that just recently came out at the time of this recording that probably didn't register. Well, I know for a fact it didn't register for 2025, but it's going to be on my Spotify 2026. I can guarantee it. That being said, my top songs for Spotify 2025, coming in at number 5, Smooth by the late, great D'Angelo. That's my favorite D'Angelo song. So it's not like I played it any more than I normally would. D'Angelo always stayed in my rotation. It's still, at the time of this recording, still kind of weird to talk about D'Angelo in past tense. As many of you know, D'Angelo passed away in 2025 from cancer. It's still, it sucks, man. I'm a fan, and it's weird to even talk about it at this point. But yeah, number 5, Smooth. Coming in at number 4, Chains and Whips from the Clips. Coming in at number 3, So Be It, the Clips. Coming in at number 2, FICO, the Clips. Coming in at number 1, the Clips, POV, featuring Tyler, the Creator. So Yeah, I mentioned earlier there was an album that caught my ear and I just played it and played it and played it. It was the album that I consider to be the album of 2025, the album of the year. That would be the Clips. Now, it's going to be interesting for those of you who follow the Grammys. Um, it's going to be a battle between the Clips and Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar's album, GNX, phenomenal album. I'm surprised. Well, it that album came out in 2024. I still played it. I probably didn't play it as much through the middle part of 2025. So that's probably why I didn't register, but I still played it a lot. But I think both of those are great albums. Um, but yeah, the top song, POV, man, POV. I thought it would have been FICO. Shout out to Stove God Cooks. But yeah, it did not make it. Um, then we get into the albums. The albums were very, very interesting. And it's going to start at number 5. Number 5, Crenshaw, Nipsey Hussle. Man, listen. That album, I've talked about it before, and I'll say it again. That album still gets played. I mean, clearly, because that album is old, and I'm still playing. It's a mixtape, and I still play it. But the Crenshaw mixtape, man, long live Nip, man. Rest in peace. Keep running your laps, fellas. Keep running your laps, ladies. Number 4, the aforementioned Little Brother, May the Lord Watch. Again, that album came out, 2019? Was it 2019? I think that album, yeah, it was 2019. Obviously, got a chance to see them, as I mentioned, with King Germ when they toured here in Atlanta back in July. And but I love that album. That album never leaves my rotation. It clearly never left my rotation. Number 3, Victory Lap, Nipsey Hussle. I mean, again, Nip's my guy. Phenomenal album. I did an album review. If you have not seen that episode, when you finish this, go back and listen to that episode. It is crazy. Number 2, not surprised this album has been in my Spotify top 5 for the last, every year there's been a Spotify top 5. This album is in the top 5. D'Angelo, Brown Sugar. I mean, what can I say? There's nothing to say. That album, it's still. I'm surprised Voodoo didn't make it, because when I listen to Brown Sugar, I listen to Voodoo. When I listen to Voodoo, I listen to Brown Sugar. There's never a setting where I don't listen to both. But Brown Sugar is number 2. Coming in at number 1, the aforementioned Let God Sort 'Em Out, and that would be the album from the Clips. So there you have it. Crenshaw, May the Lord Watch, Victory Lap, Brown Sugar, Let God Sort 'Em Out. It was a very interesting top 5, to say the least. Again, all phenomenal albums, all albums that I'm still going to listen to, that I've been listening to all year, that I'm going to continue probably listening into 2026. And last but not least, let's get to the artists. I know you're probably thinking, which way is this thing going to go? Because if you're listening to the albums, the artist probably should be somewhere in the middle. And you would be correct. Coming in at number 5, most listened to artist, Fonte. I mean, what can I say, man? One of my favorite MCs of all time. The brother's is a gifted singer, gifted songwriter, gifted rapper, MC. He can do it all, and he does it all very well. I mentioned on Twitter the other day, I said, man, they were talking about Fonte, who recently celebrated his 47th birthday at the time of this recording. And I said, you'd be hard pressed to find a bad verse from Fonte, because trust me, ain't a lot of them at all. Number 4 on my artist list, most listened to artists, the aforementioned D'Angelo. Again, man, I've got another D'Angelo episode coming, so just please bear with me. That one's going to be cool. Again, man, rest in peace, D'Angelo. You missed, brother. I can't say anymore. Number 3, Fonte's group, Little Brother. LB is gonna be always in the mix, man. They most listened to artists. They're one of my favorites, clearly. Number two, Clips. Again, the album Let God Sort Them Out really propelled them here. This is the first album I think that Pusha T and Malice did within the last, I think, 15 years. And both Pusha T and Malice are rhyming their asses off on this album. I love this album. Again, I think it's gonna win album of the year. And I don't know if you figured it out by now, but number one, Nipsey Hussle. Listen, man. I play Crenshaw, I play Victory Lap, I play Mailbox Music, I play Marathon. I mean, Nipsey's my top artist of 2025. And it's interesting because, he's no longer here through no fault of his own. But he's missed, man. And I just love listening to his music, man. That dude was, the more and more I listened to him, the more and more I realized he was so far ahead of his peers and so far ahead of the game that it doesn't make any sense. But yeah, man, the marathon still continues. It still continues. Long live Nipsey Hussle. Long live the marathon movement, man. And that's my top artist. In conclusion, it had 2025 was for music, I think, a really, really good year. Shout out to Nas, the Legend Has It series, the albums that came out from Raekwon to Ghostface to Slick Rick, Big L. I know I'm forgetting somebody. Nas is excuse me, can't forget De La Soul. Oh my God. That De La Soul album is another one that should be up for album of the year. That's going to be on my Spotify 2026. I can promise you. Nas's album to close out the year. I mean, like, Mass Appeal did an incredible job, an incredible run with those albums. I got a shout out because it just popped up right before I started recording. Got to shout out my dog, Eclectic, who just did an episode. What's the name of the episode? I just saw it pop up. Let's see here. As I'm looking for it, we'll scroll to the top. Ranking Mass Appeal Nas verses. And in that particular episode, he talks about the album releases from the Clips, Slick Rick, Ghostface, Raekwon, Big L, De La Soul, and Nas. And talk about the verses. And again, that's from Mass Appeal. So shout out to Eclectic. Make sure that you check out Encyclopedia Hip Hop. Subscribe. And also to his other podcast, Before Everything Changed. That's old school, strictly 80s and 90s nostalgia podcast. Shout out to E for doing his thing, man. Got a chance to hang out with Eclectic when he came down to Atlanta this summer as well. Always a good time hanging with that fool, man. He hit a milestone birthday this past year as well. All in all, man, 2025 musically, I thought was a really good year. I was satisfied with the music that I heard. I'll be honest, I don't listen to a whole lot of new music, but the music that I heard, I was very, 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 very pleased with. And I look forward to more good music in 2026. Hopefully, I ain't gonna mention that clown. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. We drop new episodes every week. Also, make sure that you download and subscribe to the 12 Kyle podcast. We drop new episodes there every week as well. You can find us on YouTube and all streaming platforms. Also, if you'd like to contribute to us financially, hit us up on Cash App. $TWELVEKYLE. Again, this is the Rap Soul Podcast. This is the best music podcast that prior to this episode you had never heard before. But I can tell you right now that this is the best music podcast that you're going to listen to. Make sure that you download, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Pass the word. Tell a friend to tell a friend about the Rap Soul Podcast. Again, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I will catch you guys next time. 5,000. Cheers.